You know exactly when you stopped reaching and started settling. You may not say it aloud, but you feel the date stamped inside you. There was a moment when you lowered the bar, when you told yourself, this is enough. I cannot ask for more. I am too tired to keep pushing. Since then, you have been living as a smaller version of yourself, walking through days that do not fit you, repeating habits that do not honor you, defending a life you secretly resent. You smile to keep the peace, but when you are alone, you feel the weight of a question pressing on your chest. Is this really all I will be? Hear this clearly. The person you settle for is not your final form. It is a temporary compromise you made with fear, fatigue, and confusion. You were not born to freeze at that level. It is never too late to outgrow the man you allowed yourself to become. You may think, it is too late. Too many years have passed. I have made too many wrong turns. That is the first lie you must put to death. Time does not condemn you. It exposes you. It shows you the results of your thinking and your choices so far. Nothing more. The fact that you see clearly now is not a sentence. It is a summons. There is a law at work in every life. You are not defined by who you have been, but by who you decide to become and what you repeatedly do about that decision. The man you settle for is not a prison. He is a starting point. You settle for less because you accepted a low image of yourself. You allowed circumstances, opinions, and failures to write your definition. Somewhere along the line, you stopped saying, I am becoming, and started saying, I am just this way. That phrase, just this way, has ruined more lives than any disaster. It is the language of surrender. A child does not say, I am just this way. A child falls, gets up, tries again, reaches higher. You have trained yourself out of that natural courage. The good news is that anything trained can be retrained. You can choose a higher image of yourself and begin building toward it at any age, in any condition. Look at the man you are today without flattery and without hatred. What do you see? Habits that waste your time, words that make you small, promises you gave yourself and did not keep, abilities you never sharpened, risks you backed away from. There is no use pretending otherwise. The person you settle for is a man who allowed his standards to droop until they matched his comfort, not his capacity. Do not excuse him. Do not curse him. Study him. He is your past work. You build him with your thoughts, your excuses, your decisions, your postponements. If you built this version, you can build another. To outgrow the man you settle for, you must first stop defending him. That is a hard truth. You have spent years explaining your limitations, justifying your stagnation, and telling stories about why you cannot. Every time you said, I would have, but you wrapped another layer of protection around the smaller self you chose. If you continue to protect him, you cannot surpass him. From this moment, refuse to use your intelligence to defend your own weakness. When you hear yourself explain, it's because of my age, my past, my mistakes, cut it off. Say to yourself, no, those are facts, not chains. I will not use them to excuse myself any longer. The transformation begins with a decision, not a feeling. You may not feel inspired or powerful as you listen. That does not matter. Feelings are children, loud, inconsistent, easily swayed. Decisions are fathers, silent, firm, enduring. You must decide, with or without emotion, I will not live the rest of my life as this version of myself. I will raise my standard and pay the price to meet it. I will outgrow the man I settled for even if it costs me my comfort, my old habits, and the approval of those who are pleased to see me stay small. Make that decision as a man makes an oath. Now turn your attention to the silent agreement you made with mediocrity. You did not stand up one day and announce, "I choose to be average." It happened quietly. You lowered your effort after a disappointment. You stopped asking difficult questions. You made peace with habits that dulled your mind and weakened your will. You told yourself, "This is how people like me live." Settling is not a single act. It is a long series of small surrenders. To outgrow the person you settled for, you must reverse those surrenders one by one. Ask yourself directly, where did I stop? Was it when you faced rejection and decided never again to risk your heart or your pride? Was it when a business failed and you secretly vowed, "I will never put myself in that position again"? Was it when you compared yourself to another man and concluded, "He has something I do not, why bother"? That point is not an unchangeable wall. It is a line you drew in your own mind. You can redraw it farther out. You can say, "That fall hurt me once. It humbled me, but I am still here. I will not let that single event set the limit of my life." Understand this. The man you settled for is built on 3 pillars: your self-image, your daily habits, and your dominant thoughts. You cannot tear him down by wishing. You must attack the pillars. Start with how you see yourself. You have been carrying an inner picture of a man who never quite makes it, always falls short, never finishes, is not meant for more. Every time you act to stay consistent with that picture. If you see yourself as a man destined to lose, you will find a way to lose, even when you are halfway to victory. That picture must be changed from the inside out. A new image of yourself does not mean pretending you are something you are not. It means choosing, with full responsibility, who you will become. Say to yourself, "I am a man who can learn. I am a man who keeps his word to himself. I am a man who grows stronger under pressure instead of weaker. I am a man who increases his value each year." You may not yet fully live these words. They are not a description, they are a direction. You use them to aim your behavior. Every time you act in accordance with them, you hammer another nail into the new self. Every time you act against them, you feel the sting of betrayal and correct course. This is how you outgrow the old image, by feeding the new one with repeated thought and obedient action. Then look at your habits. The man you settle for is not an accident. He is the result of what you do repeatedly. How do you use your early mornings? How do you behave when the work becomes unpleasant? How do you respond when you are tired? What do you reach for when you are discouraged? You can talk all day about becoming a higher version of yourself, but if you protect the same old routines, you will stay exactly where you are. Growth is paid for in habit. You must be willing to interrupt what is comfortable in order to build what is necessary. Choose one habit that clearly belongs to the man you settled for, something that robs your energy, your focus, or your self-respect. Perhaps it is the way you waste hours on mindless distractions, the way you leave tasks half done, the way you avoid challenging conversations. Whatever it is, name it. Then declare war on it. Tell yourself, "This habit keeps me tied to the man I am leaving behind. When I break it, I break his hold on me." Do not try to reform everything at once. Start with one chain and break it cleanly. The moment you prove to yourself that you can actually change one deep habit, a door opens in your mind. You realize you are not fixed, you are malleable. That realization is the beginning of freedom. Now turn to your dominant thoughts, the current that has been pulling you in one direction for years. You have been telling yourself the same story about who you are and what is possible. I am too late. I am too damaged. I am too far behind. Others had better chances. These are not observations. They are sentences you repeat with feeling until they harden into belief. The person you settle for lives under the weight of that story. To outgrow him, you must write a new story deliberately and feed it to your mind with the same insistence. Tell yourself, I have been late in understanding, but I am not too late to act. I have been damaged, but my scars are instruction, not chains. I am behind those who began earlier, but I am ahead of the man I was and the man who still refuses to begin. Others had advantages. I will build skills and character until I no longer need their advantages. This is not blind optimism. It is accurate responsibility. It shifts the focus from what cannot be changed to what can. That shift in focus is the mental difference between the man you settle for and the man you are becoming. You must accept that outgrowing yourself will cost you. It will cost you ease, laziness, and many of the excuses you have used as shelter. It may cost you the comfort of certain relationships that exist only because you all agreed to remain small together. Some men will not like the new standard you set. They prefer the version of you who complains, laughs off seriousness, and sabotages his own progress. Your growth will expose their refusal to grow. You cannot let that stop you. When the pressure comes to stay who you were, your inner voice must answer, I am done apologizing for rising. You are free to remain as you are. I am not. The most dangerous lie you have believed is that it is somehow noble to stay limited because of your past. You say, after what I have done, who am I to seek more? After the time I wasted, how can I dare? The answer is simple. You are the only one who can redeem that wasted time. You cannot give those years back. You can, however, compress the next years by refusing to waste another day. There is no honor in punishing yourself forever for what you did in ignorance or weakness. The only honor is in learning deeply and rising. Look back over your life not as a judge delivering final sentences, but as an engineer examining a blueprint that produced a weak structure. Instead of saying, I am a failure, say, this pattern fails. This way of thinking fails. This refusal to act fails. Then ask, what must be altered in the design? This question keeps you out of helpless shame and in the realm of cause and effect, where real power lives. The man you settle for takes everything personally. He interprets every setback as proof that he himself is fundamentally flawed. The man you are becoming sees setbacks as feedback. He says, the method was wrong. I can change the method. The timing was wrong. I can change the timing. My effort was weak. I can strengthen it. You will feel resistance from within. The self you settle for will not quietly fade. He will whisper, you are being unrealistic. You are too old to start again. You will embarrass yourself. Do not argue with him. Recognize him. He is the voice built by years of smallness. When he speaks, answer with a single firm sentence. I have listened to you long enough. You have brought me here. I am going farther now. Then act. Not tomorrow, immediately. Take some step, however small, that your old self would never have taken. Write the plan. Make the call. Begin the training. The action announces to your mind that allegiance has shifted. Do not wait until you feel completely ready. Readiness does not precede growth. It follows it. The man you settle for wants perfect conditions before he moves. The man you are becoming moves and lets his capacity rise to meet the demands. If you insist on feeling fully confident before you begin, you will die as you are. Confidence is built the same way muscle is, by lifting more than you think you can and discovering that you do not break. Understand finally that outgrowing the person you settled for is not a single transformation. It is a continuous process. There will always be a gap between who you are and who you can be. The tragedy is not that the gap exists. The tragedy is when a man pretends it does not. You must make a quiet pact with yourself. I will never again treat my current level as my ceiling. I will treat it as a floor, as the minimum I am willing to stand on, and I will keep building. If you hold to that pact, you will not fear birthdays, setbacks, or the success of others. Each year will simply be another chance to surpass the man you were at the beginning of it. The person you settle for is made of memory, habit, and fear. The person you are called to become is made of decision, discipline, and vision. You stand between them now. You can continue honoring the old image, reciting the old story, and repeating the old actions, or you can take up the tools that have always been yours. Your thoughts, your words, your choices. It is never too late to pick them up. It is only too late when you decide to put them down permanently and call it realism. Refuse that death while you still have breath. Stand up inside your own life. Raise your standard. Unearth the man you buried beneath convenience, and begin today to outgrow the person you settled for. You have admitted that you settled. You have decided you will not remain there. That is the first break in the wall. But a decision without structure becomes another regret. The man you settled for made many decisions he did not sustain. He said, "From tomorrow I will change," and by the third day he had returned to his old rhythm. You know this pattern too well. If you mean to outgrow him, you must build a different pattern. Not wild promises, but steady laws you impose on yourself and obey without negotiation. Begin with a simple but ruthless question. What does the next version of me do that I am not doing? Not what he owns, not how others see him, but what he does. Strip away dreams of applause and comfort. Think in terms of conduct. The man you choose to become rises at a certain hour, handles his duties with a certain seriousness, speaks to himself in a certain tone, confronts certain problems instead of avoiding them. Until you can describe his behavior clearly, you cannot become him. Take paper and write, in plain language, 10 behaviors that belong to the self you are reaching for. Not vague qualities like better, stronger, more successful. Concrete patterns. Perhaps he keeps his word to himself. He leaves nothing important half-finished. He knows each day what his most important work is and attacks it first. He keeps his surroundings in order. He reads and studies instead of wasting empty hours. He saves and invests instead of spending to impress. These are examples. You must choose your own, but they must be specific enough to measure. Now look at this list and tell yourself the truth. The distance between you and that next man is not fate, it is obedience. Either you obey these behaviors or you do not. There is no mystery. The man you settled for spent years looking for secrets outside himself, hoping that some book, some acquaintance, some sudden turn would lift him without requiring deep change. You will not repeat that era. You will treat these 10 behaviors as law, the way gravity is law. If you live them, you rise. If you neglect them, you sink. Do not try to swallow the entire new self in a single day. That is how you have failed before. A man does not jump from the ground to the roof in one leap. He climbs steps. Choose 3 behaviors from your list that will strike hardest at the old version of you. 3 actions that, if practiced daily, would make it impossible to remain who you are. They might be as simple as rise at this hour every day, spend 1 hour in study or planning, complete at least 1 important task before allowing any distraction, record every coin that enters or leaves my hand. The simpler they are, the harder they are to wiggle away from. Once chosen, these 3 become non-negotiable. Not when you feel strong, especially when you do not. The man you settle for obeyed his mood. The man you are building obeys his standard. Each morning you will say to yourself, no matter what else happens today, I will not sleep until I have done these 3 things. In the evening you will look, not at how you felt, not at what others did, but at whether you kept your word to yourself. This is how you begin to tear the old self out by the roots. You stop letting him win the daily vote. You will discover something remarkable. When you keep even these 3 promises for a string of days, your opinion of yourself begins to shift. You stand a little straighter. You speak of your future with a little less doubt. Why? Because you finally have proof that you can instruct yourself and be obeyed. Self-respect cannot be begged from others. It must be earned from yourself. Every kept promise is a brick in that respect. Every broken promise is a crack. You are rebuilding the wall that your years of settling knocked down. Next, you must face the greatest enemy of your growth. The story you tell yourself about your past. The man you settle for lives in a museum of old wounds and failures. He visits them daily, touches them, recites them. Here is where I lost everything. Here is where I was humiliated. Here is where they walked away. Here is where I proved that I am not enough. Then he uses these exhibits as arguments against his own rise. He says, see, I tried before. I know how it ends. You cannot outgrow a self you keep embalmed and honored. You must change how you interpret your own history. This does not mean pretending that pain was pleasant or that betrayal did not cut you. It means refusing to let those events define your capacity. When an engineer examines a collapsed bridge, he does not sit on the ruin and wail, this proves I am a cursed builder. He studies, measures, notes, learns. Then he builds again with better understanding. You must do the same with your life. Take your worst failures and write under each. Lesson purchased at great cost. Then ask bluntly, what exactly did I pay to learn? What pattern led to this loss? What warning did I ignore? What character weakness did this event expose? Do not answer with generalities like, I am no good. That is lazy thinking. Get specific. Perhaps you learn, I trusted words instead of watching actions. Or, I moved quickly where patience was required. Or, I lived as if success was owed to me, not earned. These are not accusations. They are weapons. Once named, they can be turned. Now adjust your self-image around the lessons, not around the pain. Instead of saying, I am the man who ruined his chance, say, I am the man who paid dearly to understand which attitudes ruin chances. I do not intend to waste that tuition. Instead of saying, I am the man who lost everything, say, I am the man who has already survived losing everything and is still standing. That makes me hard to kill. The facts of your past do not change, but the meaning you assign to them is entirely your choice, and that meaning directs who you become next. You must also learn to separate guilt from responsibility. Guilt says, I was wrong, and therefore I am unworthy forever. Responsibility says, I was wrong, and therefore I must become wiser and stronger. Guilt locks you in the image of the man who failed. Responsibility drives you to outgrow him. When you hear that old inner voice say, "After what you did, who are you to seek more?" Answer, "Because of what I did, I am exactly the man who must seek more. I owe it to those I harmed and to the years I wasted to become the best version of myself I can. Staying small will not repay anything." Another chain that keeps men bound to their settled selves is the belief that age is a verdict. They say, "If only I had understood this 10 years ago. Now the window is closed." That is a coward's comfort. Age does change certain windows. Perhaps you will not become a champion in some field that demands youth, but wealth of character, discipline, wisdom, and service do not obey the calendar. It may be too late to have been the man you should have been at 25. It is not too late to become the man you must be at the age you are now. Tell yourself the truth. The years you have left, whether few or many, will pass regardless. You can spend them preserving a shape you secretly despise, or you can use them to carve something worthy out of what remains. Which will bring more peace when you face your final day? The thought, "At least I was consistent in my smallness," or the thought, "Once I awoke, I never again accepted less from myself"? Age becomes an enemy only when it is used as a shield against responsibility. Use it instead as a reason for urgency. We must now speak of your environment, because no man outgrows himself in isolation from the influences he bathes in daily. The person you settle for is supported by surroundings that fit him. Conversations, entertainments, routines, and relationships that expect nothing higher from you. As long as you eat, talk, and sit at the same tables in the same way with the same spirit, your old self remains comfortably at home. If you intend to surpass him, you must disrupt his comfort. Look around at the men you spend most of your time with. Do they speak of growth, responsibility, and building? Or do they speak mostly of escape, complaint, and entertainment? Do they challenge your excuses or nod along with them? A man is not required to abandon every friend who shares his old habits, but he is required to guard his mind. You must begin to limit the time you give to voices that pull you back into the role you are leaving. This will feel like betrayal at first, but it is in fact loyalty to your potential, and in the long run, even to them, because a rising man gives others a pattern to follow. Seek out, in whatever way you can, the company of those who live nearer to the standard you are aiming for. They may be living or long gone. You can meet them in person or through their writings and recorded thoughts. The point is to keep your mind exposed to examples of men who refused to settle and paid the price to grow. When you feel tired, their stories will remind you that fatigue is not a stop sign. When you feel alone, their words will stand beside you. The man you settled for fed himself on gossip, rumor, and distraction. The man you are becoming feeds himself on instruction, principle, and example. Understand that environment is not only people. It is also the state of the space you live and work in. Disorder around you feeds disorder within you. Piles of unfinished tasks, scattered papers, cluttered rooms, all of these whisper, "You are the type of man who leaves things half done." You may not hear the sentence, but you feel its weight. Begin to bring order to your surroundings, not for appearances, but for identity. When you clear a table, when you finish a small repair you have postponed for years, tell yourself, this is what the new man does. He leaves no chronic confusion within his reach. This brings us to an uncomfortable but necessary truth. To outgrow the person you settled for, you must become intimate with discomfort. The old version of you built his entire life around avoiding certain feelings, fear, embarrassment, strain, uncertainty. He chose paths that required the least inner friction. Every time a situation threatened to stretch him, he retreated and told himself a story about why it was wise. This is how he stayed small and safe. If you intend to rise, you must reverse this instinct. From now on, when you feel the familiar tightening in your stomach, the dryness in your throat, the urge to postpone, that is your signal. It means you have reached the edge of the old self. Instead of stepping back, step forward. Say to yourself, this is where the man I settled for stops. I go one step farther. Do not promise to conquer the entire mountain in a day. Commit to the extra step. Make the call you fear. Ask the question you have been swallowing. Begin the piece of work you have been circling. Each time you do, the border of yourself expands. You will never completely remove fear or doubt from your life, nor should you. They are part of the instrument. Courage is not their absence. It is the ability to act in their presence. The man you settled for made the mistake of waiting to feel brave before he moved. The man you are becoming understands that bravery is a decision. Your inner language must reflect this new understanding. When you feel afraid, do not say, this means I cannot. Say, this means I am at the frontier. This is exactly where I must build. Another tool in your growth is deliberate reflection. The person you settled for rarely examined his own days. He drifted from morning to night and then collapsed, letting each 24 hours vanish into the next without drawing any wisdom from it. You cannot afford that waste any longer. Set aside time each day. 10 minutes is enough to think about your own behavior as if you were watching another man. Ask, where did I act like the old self today? Where did I act like the new one? When you notice an instance where you fell back into settling for comfort, for distraction, for silence, do not lie about it. Say, there the old man spoke. I allowed him the floor. Tomorrow, in the same situation, I will let the new man answer. Then imagine, in detail, how you will respond differently. This rehearsal is not fantasy, it is preparation. Your mind will recognize the moment when it arrives again and say, we have seen this. We know what to do. That is how you steal territory from your old identity. At the same time, record your victories, no matter how small they may seem. The day you wake at the hour you set instead of the hour you feel like. The evening you choose to study instead of numbing yourself. The moment you hold your tongue instead of joining in a useless complaint. Write them down. Today, I acted as the man I am becoming. This record is not for vanity. It is ammunition. On days when your progress feels invisible, these notes will prove to you that change is real. Finally, connect this entire process to a purpose larger than comfort or pride. If your only goal in outgrowing yourself is to feel superior, you will poison your own efforts. Pride cannot sustain discipline. It collapses at the first serious loss. You need a reason that survives both victory and defeat. Ask yourself, for whom beyond myself must I become more? Perhaps it is for your family who needs a stronger example. Perhaps it is for those you might serve through your work who are waiting unknowingly for the fuller version of you. Perhaps it is simply because you recognize that wasting the capacity you were given is a form of theft from life itself. Tell yourself, I refused to rise for years because I was afraid. Now I will rise because it is my duty. My growth is not a luxury, it is an obligation. To stay less than I can be is to walk ungrateful through the years I have left. This language gives moral weight to your transformation. It makes quitting not just a personal disappointment, but a violation of conscience. A man will endure far more when he believes endurance is right than when he sees it as optional. The person you settled for is still inside you, but he no longer has to sit at the head of the table. You are free at any hour to strip him of that seat and place there the man you have described, the man you have begun to obey. You do this not by shouting at the old self, but by starving him. You feed the new one with decisions, habits, interpretations, surroundings, and purpose. Day by day, the balance of power shifts. The voice of the man who wants to stay small grows weaker. The voice of the man who insists on growing grows stronger. There will be setbacks. There will be days when the old habits flood back and you feel as if nothing has changed. Do not use those days as proof that you are doomed. Use them as proof that you are in a real contest. A man does not become stronger by winning every round. He becomes stronger by refusing to leave the ring. Say to yourself when you fall, "So this is what it feels like when the old self lands a blow. I am still standing. I will answer tomorrow." Then answer. It is never too late to outgrow the person you settled for, because growth is not a matter of years left. It is a matter of steps taken. You may not control the length of the road ahead, but you control whether you crawl, stand still, or walk it like a man who has finally remembered he was meant to move. You have begun to move. You have written down the man you intend to become. You have chosen a few hard laws for yourself. You have started to treat your past as instruction instead of identity. This alone puts you ahead of most men who never once take themselves in hand. But if you would truly outgrow the person you settled for, you must do more than improve your habits and surroundings. You must reach into the deepest workshop of your nature, your imagination, and reclaim it from the service of fear. For years, you have used your imagination primarily to picture what might go wrong. You have rehearsed disasters, embarrassments, losses that never happened. You have died 1,000 small deaths in your mind and then wondered why your courage is weak. The man you settled for built his world on those pictures. The man you are becoming must use imagination as a builder, not as a saboteur. Your mind does not distinguish clearly between what you picture vividly and what you experience outwardly. When you constantly see yourself failing, falling short, being ridiculed, losing everything, your heart responds as if these things were real. Your pulse quickens, your body tenses, you retreat. You have spent years rehearsing defeat in the theater of your mind, and then stepped onto the stage of life already exhausted. To outgrow that man, you must close that theater and open another. You must begin to imagine yourself acting as the higher version of you would act, meeting difficulty as he would meet it, carrying himself as he would carry himself. This is not fantasy for its own sake. It is training. An athlete sees the movement in his mind before his body performs it. A builder sees the house in his imagination long before the first stone is laid. In the same way, you must see the new self in action before he becomes your natural way. Sit in quiet and picture yourself in the very situations where the old you has always surrendered. The hard conversation, the moment of temptation, the hour of discouragement, the opportunity that frightens you. See the new man standing there instead. Watch him speak plainly where you used to stay silent. Watch him refuse the old indulgence. Watch him bend but not break under pressure. Do not merely see the scene. Feel it. Feel your shoulders squared, your voice steady, your eyes clear. Feel the weight of self-respect that comes from acting in line with your higher standard. At first, this will feel strange because you are used to seeing yourself as the smaller man. but repetition will carve a new groove. Morning after morning, evening after evening, you rehearse this higher conduct. Then, when life presents you with a real moment, your mind says, we have been here already. We know the part. You will still feel the old pull, but you will also feel the strength of a script you have practiced. As you use imagination in this way, you must tie it to a definite purpose. The man you settled for drifted because he never fully committed his mind to a single clear aim. He wanted better days, more money, respect, but these were fog, not targets. You cannot outgrow yourself by chasing fog. You must write a purpose so definite that a stranger could read it and know whether you are moving toward it or not. Perhaps it is to build a particular business, to master a certain skill, to become debt-free and financially disciplined, to transform your character in specific ways. The details are yours, but they must exist. Once your purpose is written, you will feed it daily to your imagination, not as a wish, but as a command. You will say, this is the direction of my life. All lesser impulses must yield to this. When old desires tempt you to waste time or money, you will measure them against your purpose. Does this move me toward the man I am becoming or keep me chained to the man I was? That simple question, asked honestly, will expose the smallness of many old habits. The person you settled for never asked it. He acted first and justified later. You will reverse that order. You must also understand the role of repetition in this internal change. The man you settle for is not a single thought. He is millions of thoughts, spoken inwardly and outwardly over years. You will not uproot him with a weekend of good intentions. Just as a muscle strengthens by repeated exertion, your new identity crystallizes through repeated alignment between thought, word, and deed. Each time you choose the new response in place of the old, you lay down another layer of the new man. Each time you fall back into the old pattern and then correct yourself quickly instead of wallowing, you prove that your allegiance has shifted. This is why you cannot afford to become impatient with yourself. Impatience is one of the old self's most effective tricks. When you stumble, he says, see, nothing is changing. All this effort is foolish. If you believe him, you abandon the process. Just as it is beginning to take root, you must answer differently. Of course I stumbled. I have spent years walking a certain way, but I caught myself sooner than I would have before. That is, progress. Tomorrow I will catch myself sooner still. You judge yourself not by perfection, but by direction and speed of correction. That is how builders think. The man you settled for has a particular relationship with failure. He fears it, hides from it, takes it personally, and uses it as proof that he should remain as he is. The man you are becoming must redefine failure entirely. Failure is not the opposite of growth, it is part of it. Every attempt that falls short reveals something about your current limits, your blind spots, or your methods. Failure is valuable only if you remain conscious enough to extract that information. When you fail and then run away in shame, you pay the price without receiving the lesson. That is the old pattern. From now on, when you fail, you will talk to yourself like this. You did not achieve the results you aimed for. That is uncomfortable. Now, what are the causes? Did you neglect preparation? Did you misunderstand the requirement? Did you choose a poor partner? Did you allow fear to tighten your voice or weaken your effort? You will write the answers without self-insult. Then you will say, very well. This is what must change before the next attempt. And you will attempt again, this time equipped with knowledge. The person you settled for treated failure as a permanent mark on his identity. You treat it as a temporary feedback on your method. That single shift separates stagnation from progress. We must speak now of discipline, because without it, all this talk of imagination, purpose, and new identity will remain pleasant theory. Discipline is the bridge between the man you are and the man you intend to be. The old you experienced discipline as an enemy. He thought of it as a chain that prevented him from doing what he wanted. That is why he lives as a slave to weaker desires. You must teach yourself to see discipline as the instrument of freedom. Every time you impose order on yourself, on your time, your appetites, your words, you are cutting away the straps that tie you to a small life. When you rise at the hour you chose instead of the hour comfort suggests, you are not merely getting up earlier, you are telling yourself, my feelings do not command me. When you sit down to your most important work while your mind looks longingly at easier tasks, you are saying, we do not flee from weight, we pick it up. When you refuse an unnecessary purchase and place that money toward your larger aim, you are declaring, I honor my future more than my momentary craving. Each such act is a chisel stroke on the statue of the new self. Understand that discipline expands just as laziness does. A single small act of self-command today makes the next one slightly easier. The reverse is also true. Each time you allow yourself to break your own rules without consequence, you weaken the authority of your word. Soon you are a man whose promises mean nothing even to himself. That is who you settle for. To outgrow him, you must become a man whose smallest inner commitments are treated as sacred. If you tell yourself you will read for 20 minutes, do it. If you decide you will not complain once in a day, guard your tongue. The content of the commitment matters less than the habit of honoring it. Now consider the role of courage in this outward and inward growth. The person you settled for managed his life to avoid certain pains. The pain of being seen trying, the pain of being misunderstood, the pain of making changes that others might question. He hid behind a narrow range of acceptable behavior and called it being realistic. But the truth is that he was ruled by fear of judgment. If you intend to surpass him, you must cultivate a different stance. You must become willing to be seen changing. There is a humility in this that the old self cannot tolerate. He would rather remain stuck than risk looking foolish, rather stay known as a failure than be seen making imperfect attempts. You must reverse that pride. Tell yourself, yes, some will notice that I am behaving differently. Some may mock. Some may wait for me to fall. Let them. I am not here to maintain their image of me. I am here to fulfill my duty to my potential. When you hear, what will they think? Answer, they will think for a moment and then return to their own concerns. My life is mine. As you act more boldly, you will discover an important fact. Most people are far less concerned with your growth than you imagined. They are busy wrestling with their own limits. The jailer you feared was largely in your head. The change you thought were social were actually internal. Once you break those, your world becomes wider without anyone else moving. This is why so much of your future depends on what you do with fear when it arises. You can use it as a signal to retreat, as the old self did, or as a bell that rings to announce, here is a place to grow. You must also cultivate endurance. The man you settled for could muster short bursts of effort, but he quickly lost interest or heart when results did not appear swiftly. He was addicted to early excitement. He abandoned many good paths because they did not reward him immediately. You cannot afford such childishness if you intend to outgrow him. You must accept that meaningful change often moves slowly, especially at the beginning. The seed vanishes into the ground long before the sprout appears. The first swings of the axe show no sign of weakening the tree. When you embark on a new course to build a skill, to establish a discipline, to clean your finances, expect that the first days may feel thankless. You will be tempted to say, "This is not working," because you do not yet see visible fruit. That is when you turn to your inner voice and say, "I did not choose this path for immediate applause. I chose it because it is right. I will give it sufficient time to bear results." Quitting early only guarantees that my doubt was stronger than my decision. Endurance is not stubbornness for its own sake. It is loyalty to your higher judgment in the face of your lower impatience. As your endurance grows, something shifts in how you see yourself. You no longer think of yourself as a man blown about by moods and circumstances. You begin to view yourself as a steady force. This inner solidity is part of the new identity. It will show in your posture, your eyes, your handshake. Others will feel it without knowing its source. They will not realize that it was built in hours when you quietly kept going instead of quietly quitting. Do not neglect the spiritual dimension of this transformation. You are not an isolated machine restructuring itself in a cold universe. There is a higher order at work, a law that honors sincere effort, definite purpose, and a willingness to grow. You have glimpsed it in moments when help appeared just when you needed it, when an idea came at the right time, when a door opened you had not even known was there. The man you settled for ignored these hints or chalked them up to luck. The man you are becoming recognizes that when he aligns his thoughts, words, and actions with growth, he seems to receive more guidance. Speak to yourself about this reality plainly. I do not walk alone. As I take responsibility for what is mine, my thinking, my habits, my purpose, life itself seems to respond. Opportunities arise, insights come, people cross my path. I will not sit idly waiting for favor, but I will expect that as I move rightly, help will meet me. This expectation is not an excuse to relax. It is a motive to act. It keeps you from despair in seasons when progress is slow, because you know that unseen cooperation may already be at work on your behalf. Finally, you must decide how you will measure your success in outgrowing the man you settle for. If you judge yourself only by outward markers, income, possessions, titles, you will be vulnerable to discouragement, especially in the early phase. Those things often lag behind inner change. Instead, you must first measure what is immediately within your control. The clarity of your purpose, the consistency of your habits, the quality of your inner talk, the courage with which you face discomfort, the speed with which you recover from setbacks. Each night, as you think back over your day, ask, did I think today as the new man thinks or as the old man did? Did I keep my chosen laws? Did I take at least one step, however small, that the old self would not have taken? If the answer is yes, you have succeeded that day, regardless of outward results. If the answer is no, you do not condemn yourself as worthless. You treat it as a warning. Today I slid, tomorrow I must tighten. This daily measuring prevents you from drifting back into vague living. It keeps your growth concrete. Over months and years, the outer changes will come. You will make decisions the old you could never have made. To leave certain patterns, to rearrange your work, to pursue opportunities, to walk away from compromises that no longer fit your standards. People will notice that you are not quite the same man you were. Some will say you have changed. Others will say you have finally become who you were meant to be. Inside, you will know the truth. You outgrew the person you once settled for by taking charge of the only things you ever truly owned: your thoughts, your words, your habits, your courage, and your purpose. This process does not end. Every level you reach will reveal another level above. That is not a cause for frustration. It is the dignity of being human. You are not a finished object placed on a shelf. You are a being capable of continuous refinement. The tragedy is not that there is more to become, but that so many men stop becoming too soon and then defend their stagnation as if it were a virtue. You will not be one of them. You will honor the gift of your remaining years by refusing to die as the man you accidentally became when you stopped trying. You will die when that day comes as the man you deliberately spent your life becoming. You have been living as if your life belonged to everyone but you. You let family habits, the talk of your street, the customs of your circle, and the memory of your mistakes decide how far you were allowed to rise. Then you wondered why your days felt heavy and wrong. A man who lets others write his script will always feel like an actor in the wrong play. If you intend to outgrow the man you settled for, you must seize the pen. You must live by design, not by drift. Design begins when you ask yourself, without lying, what you truly value. Not what sounds noble to say, not what others told you to want, but what would let you die with a clear conscience. Do you want to be a man whose word is trusted, whose work matters, whose presence strengthens his family, whose mind stays sharp, whose money is clean and wisely handled, whose influence adds order instead of confusion? Once you name what matters, look at your present life and ask, can the way I am living possibly lead there? If the answer is no in some areas, you do not curse yourself, you correct yourself. You stop calling contradiction fate and start calling it what it is: self-betrayal. Correction requires that you learn the power of no. The man you settled for handed out yes to everyone and everything, yes to every mood, every distraction, every unnecessary obligation. He believed that kindness meant surrender and humility meant shrinking. That is how he stayed small. You must see it differently. When you refuse a pointless outing so you can work on your skill, that is not selfishness, it is stewardship. When you say, I cannot spend this evening wasting time, my energy belongs to my growth, you are protecting the very source of any future help you will be able to give. Some will not like this new boundary. They prefer the version of you who was always available for idleness. Let them grumble. Your first duty is to the man you are becoming. You must change how you see time. The old you treated time as something to get through. He spoke of killing hours. Time punished him because he used it like an enemy. You must see each day as a field of fixed size. You can plant effort, learning, discipline, and action in that field, or you can plant gossip, distraction, and laziness. The soil does not argue, it returns what you sow. Each morning ask, what 3 things can I do today that the old self would avoid? Write them. Do them. Each night measure, not by how you felt, but by whether you acted as the new man at least 3 times. That is how a life is quietly turned. Do not envy men who appear content in small lives. It is easy to look at those who never question themselves and think, perhaps I am foolish to work this hard on my character. Remember the nights you lay awake knowing you had betrayed your potential. They are happy only because they refuse to look closely. You tried that path already. It left you empty. There is a heavier fatigue than physical tiredness. the fatigue of living below yourself. Better to be weary from effort than poisoned by regret. Learn to be both grateful and discontent. The man you settled for used gratitude as an excuse to stand still. He said, I should just be thankful and stop asking for more, and then use that sentence to excuse his laziness. True gratitude does not make a man idle, it makes him diligent. You say, I am grateful to be alive and to have another day, and because you are grateful, you refuse to waste it. Gratitude that produces sleep is false. Gratitude that produces effort is real. Your view of money must grow up with you. The smaller version of you either worshiped money as a miracle other men received or despised it as something dirty. Both attitudes kept him broke. You must treat money as a servant and a report card. When you grow in skill, reliability, and discipline, money is one form of evidence that the world trusts your value. To chase it without character will destroy you. To reject it out of fear or pride will limit your usefulness. Tell yourself, I am becoming a man who can be trusted with responsibility, including financial responsibility. That means learning where your money goes, planning it, directing it. Each time you look your numbers in the face instead of hiding, you are outgrowing the man who pretended not to understand. As you change, a new peace appears, an inner quiet, the old you never knew. You may still have debts to pay and heavy work to do, but the war inside settles. You know you are no longer lying to yourself. You are no longer pretending that a life you despise is good enough. That alignment between what you say you value and what you actually do is one of the richest forms of wealth. The man you settled for never knew it. He lived always at odds with his own conscience. You must separate humility from self-betrayal. The old you called his fear humility. When opportunity appeared, he said, who am I to do that? And hid, then felt noble for staying small. That is not humility. That is cowardice dressed in polite language. True humility admits, my gifts are not my own, and I must use them fully while I have time. When you know you can grow and refuse because growth is uncomfortable, you are not being modest. You are abandoning your duty. Your inner voice must stop praising that abandonment as virtue. Outgrowing the man you settled for does not mean hating him. He is your rough draft. He did what he could with the understanding he had. You were ignorant, easily frightened, easily distracted. So be it. A rough draft is not a sin, it is a stage. The sin is to refuse revision once you see the errors. Look back at him with clear eyes. You kept me alive until I learned better. Now I will not let your limits dictate the rest of my years. Honor him by surpassing him. Think of legacy. Legacy is not what you write on a stone. It is the pattern your life impresses on those who watch you. The old self leaves this message. When life becomes heavy, settle and stay there. The new self leaves this message. You can begin again, even late, and climb until the end. Which message do you want to send to your children, to those who know your story, to the younger man you once were? You are writing that message now, with each small choice. Imagine the last day when you stand face to face with two versions of yourself. The one you settled for and the one you were capable of becoming. One carries a lifetime of excuses, the other carries a lifetime of effort. One is comfortable and unfinished, the other is scarred and complete. You choose between them not in a single moment, but in thousands of unnoticed decisions. Every time you choose discipline over drift, learning over escape, truth over comfort, It is never too late to outgrow the person you settle for, because the power to do so has always been in the same place. In your next thought, your next word, your next act. You do not need to relive your entire life. You need to live this day as the man you have decided to be. Tomorrow will again be today, and the same law will hold. The old self has had his turn. He gave you boredom, regret, and half-used strength. Thank him for the lesson, and then dismiss him. The rest of your story belongs to the man who refuses, from this day forward, to settle for anything less than the full measure of who he can become.